on, I bet. All right, it's noon and want to be respectful of folks' time, as well as hopefully get to the good part where we've got some breakout rooms and folks can apply some of the stuff that we're talking about. Thank you for choosing hashtag Teens Are the Future, how to build youth empowerment and after school programming. I am Liz Pileckas. I work for the Kachemak Bay Family Planning Clinic in Homer. There's two major projects out of that clinic. One is the actual reproductive health clinic for men and women. And then there's also the rec room. So that's where all the youth programming stuff happens. And that is where I work. I also have with me today Miss Victoria Taylor, who is a senior in high school. And she is our peer education writer. She works with our peer education team. And that's kind of a hybrid of in-school and after-school programming, but she's going to focus a little bit on the after-school programming portion of that. Today, we teach sexual health and wellness in the schools, and so Vicki does that, but the portion of empowering her to teach her how to do that happens after school. So that's something that we're going to draw on today. It seems like folks are probably pretty well trickled in. We're super honored that you made it. And I also want to recognize that we are at the end of a virtual conference. I've heard folks saying that there was a ton of information that got packed in there, but hopefully we'll be able to share some more information. And then the biggest goal is to give folks time to apply some of the stuff that we're talking about today, but perhaps even weave in some of the things that you've been thinking about and learning about in the last couple of days. But I also want to recognize that maybe Alicia, as our room host, maybe I cut you off. Do you have some intro things that you are to do?
Yes, please. Thank you. I'll be quick. I'm Alicia, and I'm the virtual room host for today's workshop, Teens of the Future, How to Build Youth Empowerment in After-School Programming. I would like to remind you of a few items before our presenter gets started. Please feel free to use the chat box throughout the session and keep yourself on mute while the presenter is speaking. As a reminder, a link to our conference agreements can be found in the chat box. At the end of the workshop session, the presenter will stay online for 20 minutes for question and answer from participants. Also, do not forget to fill out the evaluation at the end of the workshop session to get entered in our drawing for door prizes at the closing session of the day today. So thank you all for being here. Our workshop is being facilitated by Liz and Victoria. Liz grew up on the East Coast riding bikes, swimming in lakes, and boogie boarding at the Jersey Shore. She was raised by a consistent and compassionate single mother. Liz's own approach to coming of age was a little bit of a gotta go to know, and a lot of the rules don't apply to me. Her rebellious nature in her teen years and a deep-seated conviction that adults could generally be doing a better job at role modeling led her to be a passionate youth worker. Since 2005, she's been working alongside and learning from teens in classroom, wilderness, and after-school settings. She finds her work as the youth program manager for the rec room in Homer to be a mix of inspiring, humbling, and downright goofy, depending on the day. She is currently energized when thinking about systems and structures that can empower youth and other youth workers to create quality programming and experiences for those involved, and is delighted to be here to talk about those things here at the Alaska After School Conference.
Right on. Thanks, Alicia. I will move us right along to, yep, like you said, we've got Vicki Taylor here. She's a peer education writer. She's going to introduce herself in a moment. I'm Liz Pileckas. I'll just say a little bit more to introduce myself. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I currently live on Denina and Sipiak land in Homer, Alaska, and I work for Kachemak Bay Family Planning Clinic. The rec room stands for Resource Enrichment Co-op. And that started about 10 years ago as a response to a community need for safe spaces for after school, safe spaces for teens ages 12 to 18. So we do serve slightly older population than some folks in the after school conference. We have two major projects at the rec room. One is the teen and unintended pregnancy prevention program. And the reason I'm explaining this is that it gets a little blurry sometimes. So as I'm giving tips and tricks for after school stuff, some of the in-school stuff that we do might kind of get blurred in there. So we teach sexual health and wellness in 10 different schools in the surrounding area in the Southern Kenai Peninsula. And we hire teen peer health educators. And it is their job to work with us in an after school setting to then go and teach in the schools. So it's a little bit of a combination of in-school and after-school stuff. The other major project that we do at the Rec Room is our after-school programming. So the Rec Room is a physical space that, of course, we're not meeting in right now. We're doing stuff virtually over Zoom, but it is a physical space for teens to gather with the mission of helping to create healthy relationships and decision-making amongst youth. So some of the things that we're doing right now that are youth empowerment related are peer teen health educators after school, and we have 3 virtual hangouts happening throughout the week. One of those virtual hangouts is completely designed and run and facilitated by teens. So we have a little bit of experience with how to work with teens and get them to kind of bring to life the things that they see that are needed in their community. I also wanted to say before we get started, or as we're getting started, is that before I worked for the Rec Room, I spent a lot of years as an outdoor educator. And I have to be honest, I'm pretty new to after school programming. So a huge part of where I draw my understanding of how to empower teens and how to use simple frameworks to understand how to give kids the tools to advocate for themselves and make decisions for themselves comes from my work as a wilderness educator and taking teens, specifically at-risk youth, into the boundary waters in northern Minnesota for 3 weeks at a time sometimes. And the reason that I mention that is because the whole purpose, I worked for the Voyager Outward Bound School, if anyone knows anything about Outward Bound. The whole purpose of those expeditions is that by the end of the expedition, whoever it is that you're working with, those are called students because it's a school, is able to run the expedition on their own. So in the course of 8 years, I had, I don't know how many experiences of taking people from a point of not knowing anything about how to paddle a canoe, run a dog sled, ski, start a fire, collect firewood, turtle their rain gear, whatever that means, right? And then all of a sudden at the end of a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they're able to do all those things on their own. So that is where a ton of my understanding, framework, thinking, experience, conviction that empowerment works comes from. And I say that because I want to recognize that I'm fairly new to after school stuff. And so I'm learning probably alongside a lot of you, as well as alongside Vicki, about how to take that simple framework and really put it into an after school setting. So I want to share some of the things that I know worked really well for me, and then give us space to think about how to apply that to specific programs in the next month or so, so that you've got some tangibles walking away from here. And that's all for me. I wanted to pass it over to Vicki so that she could introduce herself. Vicki, are you there?
I am indeed. Okay. Hi, I'm Victoria Taylor, or I go by V. I use the pronouns she, her, or they, them. I live in Anchor Point, Alaska. I also work for the Family Planning Clinic and the Rec Room. I started on the peer education team as just a regular peer ed in December of 2019, up until recently in July when I was promoted to the peer education writer, where I write the blog posts for the Rec Room. It's a really fun thing to do, and I really like being able to do that because writing is one of my favorite things.
Right on, Vicki. Vicki, would you be able to introduce our check-in and go-around question for folks?
Yes, I can indeed. So we really like hearing from all of you, so we have a check-in and go-around question for today. What we're going to ask is if you can put in the chat your name, your pronouns, the ages you're working with, and then answer the question, what is resonating for you from the last couple of days of this conference?
Right on, thanks, V. And as folks are taking the time to put that in the chat, we also want to say that at all of our Rec Room gatherings, we institute the right to pass. And so what that means is if you'd like to answer all of these questions, if you'd like to answer none of these questions, if you'd like to answer a couple of these questions, that's up to you. We do sometimes ask personal questions that folks might not be ready to share in a public setting where you don't quite feel safe yet. And we respect that you share the information that you want to share. That is something that is really important to us too. And if you want to sit and listen to this whole conference and you're not interested in participating, that's all right too. We're just glad that you're here.
Could you guys write those questions again in the Zoom chat?
Yep, right on. Vicky, are you on it? Sweet. Right on. We got some folks working with younger folks, 16 to 20, I see. Nice, K to 12. 5th through 8th. Misha, hearing from underrepresented voices. Jane really enjoyed Dr. Chamberlain's presentations. 9th through 12th grade. How to have hard conversations, nice. Voice and choice and what that can look like presenting at a conference. Oh, nice. Sounds like some exciting things ahead for Catherine. K through 12, nice. Importance of honoring land and place of where your programming is, incorporating and centering local cultural values and leaders, nice. 6th through 8th grade, mostly, 16 to 19 occasionally. Okay, K through 12. Okay, nice, awesome. Something that really resonated for me, man, Erica Snowden modeling how to approach bias and racism in the classroom by asking open-ended questions blew my mind. I've taken some motivational interviewing trainings for sure, but just hearing the way that she would approach that in a classroom or after school setting was awesome. It was a really awesome blending of a couple skills that I have. Yep, 8 to 18, nice, Sam, thanks. Oh, and I got another Colin, focus on outdoor and experiential learning. Nice, we probably have a lot to talk about. Awesome. Julie, all ages, including adults, awesome. 6th through 12th graders, a lot of votes for the brain. Yep, that's empowering stuff. Okay, right on. All right. We are going to 6th through 8th, how we ensure our after-school programs are open and safe for all students. Nice. Okay. All right. It sounds like there is a lot that's resonating. It sounds like there is a pretty good age range, which is awesome. We work with 12 to 18-year-olds at the rec room, and it sounds like we will have a lot of overlap in this group. So to start off, why do we practice youth empowerment? It takes a long time. It can be a lot of planning. What are some of the reasons that you want to or that you do practice youth empowerment? And let's see some of those answers going in the chat. Why do we do this? Why would we take the time and the energy and the space to empower young people? Isn't it easier to just tell them what to do, show them what to do, lead a class? Why do we do this? Yep. Self-efficacy, right on. Because the research tells us to, Catherine. Yes, it does. Learn how to use their voice, stand up for themselves, their space. Want them to get out of it what they want, not what we want. Yeah. Yeah, right on. So they have buy-in. If they're empowered, they're invested, which will result in ever increasing independence, confidence, joy, build confidence, value them as individuals. We want empowered youth to become empowered adults. It's an art form to do it right. Amen, Kenneth. You have to make them feel like they're empowering themselves. Yes. Inception. I often use that word. Be in control of their lives and have control in their lives. Yes. Build self-advocacy and leadership. Yes. Yes. Awesome. These are all, yes, all amazing. My favorite answer is it's just more fun. I have been a teacher and an educator for a long time, but I actually mostly enjoy working with youth when I'm taking a back seat or I'm in a coaching or mentoring role. So I do it because it's more enjoyable for me to not be the one that is leading everything, nor do I think I have all the answers. So I like to empower other people to run the show. All right, so what are we going to do here? It's clear that there's a lot of passion in this room for youth empowerment and belief in why it's really important. Pili, I realize how much smarter they are than me when I watch them do things too, right? That's very true. Vicki knows that's true. Okay, so what are we going to use our time here for? A few things that we would like to accomplish, Vicki and I, if we have the time. We're going to model approaches that work to build teen empowerment. So some of these opening things that we're doing with a go around question and getting folks in the chat, and then a couple things that we're going to do after this, like a body regulation. We'll do a land acknowledgement. These are things that we do in every single one of our rec room gatherings. And so we're modeling those for you. And if you've got consistent things that you are doing every time you meet with kids, you're laying a framework and a structure for how to ask them and invite them and call them in to start taking responsibility as well. So Vicki and I are trying to model the things that we do, not just tell you. Identify a simple framework that for teen empowerment that works. We'll share that with you. We'll apply that simple framework to an after school setting. And then hopefully we've got some time here that will let you identify next steps in your agency or team to apply to your own programming moving forward. A few group agreements as we move forward here, right to pass, like we've already said. If you are feeling like you're in super observation contemplative mode and you just want to sit and listen and take it all in and take notes, absolutely feel free to. If you're feeling like you've got a lot to say, please chime in the chat. You know, take your mic off mute. We're a pretty open community here. Keep it relevant. So if you've got questions or things that you have to say to chime in to be like, hey, Liz, actually, this is what's going on, or this is what my program needs, or this is what I'm thinking, or this is what I'm seeing, like, help us keep this workshop relevant. I'm working in a very specific setting in Homer that does not necessarily apply to everything that all of you are doing. So help me keep this relevant. And then the other thing that I ask is practice growth mindset. So focusing on the process. Teen empowerment is a process, as I'm sure you all know. And the opposite of growth mindset is fixed mindset, which is being fixed on the outcome. If you're fixed on an outcome of like this one perfect picture that you have of teen empowerment, you're probably going to feel yourself being frustrated or struggling with that, because it's really an ongoing process that is constantly moving forward, stepping back, stepping in, walking away, taking the big picture, reflecting, jumping back in. So focusing on the process, I find really, really helps, and hopefully we'll be able to do that today as well. Okay, something that we do in every one of our rec room gatherings is a body regulation. If you heard Dr. Chamberlain talk this morning, you heard all of the neurological reasons why taking a moment to regulate your body and your mind is powerful and useful. And I wanted to invite all of you to participate in a guided visualization. So this is one way of doing a body regulation. I'm just going to stop the share for a moment. And I'm going to invite you to find a comfortable seat. You are welcome to turn off your mic, turn off your camera at this time. It's nice to not feel like you're being seen on screen. And I'm going to ask you to sit straight up in your chair, if that's where you're sitting. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Relax. Take a couple more deep breaths. I'm going to speak to you and ask you to visualize, and I want you to just listen and imagine. Don't sleep, don't nod off, just relax and imagine. And we're going to imagine the program that you are working in right now, for after school programming, that is. We're going to do a bit of a goals visualization. So when you think about your program, think about the students, the participants, see them. Think about your coworkers, your staff, in your mind, see them. See yourself working. When you see all these things in your mind, how does it make you feel? Take a moment to imagine that. And then think about a goal, perhaps related to youth empowerment, that you might want to accomplish in the next year of working with the young people in your life, working with the staff, your coworkers. It could be a really big goal, it could be a really small goal. Think about why this goal is important to you. How will you achieve it? What will you need to do? Think about it and see the goal in your mind's eye. Imagine yourself going forward into the future. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Keep going forward. Now it's a month into the future. You've started implementing some of these ideas about empowering youth, or you've started implementing some of your dream visions. What decisions have you made? What actions have you taken? And how does it feel to be on that road, focused on process? And now I want you to continue going forward. It's 6 months in the future. You're much closer to this goal, to this feeling of a humming, buzzing, youth-empowered program. You're starting to feel the benefits of all of your efforts. How does it feel to be that close to the goal? What emotions do you feel as you move towards it? Now I want you to continue going forward, and it's 1 year in the future of this program. See yourself, see the participants. What do they look like? What do they feel like? How are they doing? What are they saying to each other? What are you saying to them? What's the vibe? What's the tone? And from that year perspective, take a look back on the process of getting there. How did you do that? What were the steps? What were the little things you did day by day, moment by moment, whether they were big or small? What did you do in the relationships? What did you do inwardly? When you're ready, take a deep breath, relax, smile, and open your eyes. Okay. Done. Hold on a moment. Oh, not the one I wanted. Oh. Ah. Oh, sorry, we had a couple of presentations going. Okay, there we go. So body regulation is something that we do at the beginning of all of our rec room hangouts. And it's also something that Vicky knows how to do as well. Something else that we do that we believe is really important is to take a moment and model a land acknowledgement. I will be the first one to say that this is something that I've learned to do in the past year. I'm still new at it. It makes me really nervous to model this for adults who may have been practicing this for a long time. But it is part of how we model what our values are at the rec room for young people. And I believe Vicki is going to read the land acknowledgement that we have been using and sharing for the last month or so.
Okay. We acknowledge that we are living and working on the ancestral and unceded traditional territories of the Dena'ina and Sugpiaq peoples. The indigenous peoples of this land never surrendered lands or resources to Russia or the United States. We acknowledge this not only in thanks to the indigenous communities who have held relationship with this land for generations, but also in recognition of a historical and ongoing legacy of colonialism. Additionally, we acknowledge this as a point of reflection for us all as we work towards dismantling colonial practices.
Vicki. That practice evolved out of workshops put on by Bunnell Gallery with Melissa Shaganoff and Homer. And so if you're specifically looking for learning how to do land acknowledgements well and why they are important and where to start, Melissa Shaganoff would be a really great person. She's been traveling around Alaska, and I'm sure there are lots of other people, but just specifically sharing our learning process at the rec room with land recognition. Okay, I'm going to get into the simple framework that we're going to use for the rest of the workshop here. Like I said, a huge part of my understanding of empowering youth comes from taking people into a wilderness area and teaching them how to basically survive and make decisions, assess risk, and run their own expedition. The picture here in particular is a group of females who were in the wilderness area for 3 weeks. And this is, I want to say, about the middle of the second week. And we had enough wind on a massive lake and made a sail and decided that it would be a great way to get us going somewhere quicker. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. The framework that I use and that Vicki has seen is model, coach, mentor. And the idea is that if you want folks to be able to be empowered and do something on their own, you've got to start with a really good structure and you've got to start with a really good model. I'm probably not telling you too much that you don't already know, but you need to start with something. There's a really big difference between coming into a room of kids and saying, hey, what do you guys want to do? And then the other side of the spectrum, which is like, here's what we're going to do, right? If you have this goal of eventually being able to say to Vicki, what do you think? What do you want to do? Vicki needs to see what is possible first. She needs to be modeled for. She needs to have a structure that she can have an opinion about or be able to say, well, I think we should try this, or I think we should go with this way, or this isn't actually working. And so that's really, really important. Once you've modeled something really, really well, you can kind of move on to the coaching aspect of this framework. And that means, like, once I've shown Vicki, like, hey, here's a really good framework for how to host a virtual Rec Room after school hangout. And I've modeled how to do that. And I've given her all of the pieces, and she's seen me do it a couple times or a few times. I can ask her to take part in some of that and coach her alongside that. So that's like me walking alongside her saying, all right, do you want to try this? Much like a coach would do on the sidelines of a team game. And then if you're lucky, you can move on to the mentoring aspect. So that's kind of like, that's my favorite part of youth empowerment, which is like, you've modeled for someone, you've given them a structure, you've shown them how to do it. You've done it in a way that is really solid, is really consistent. You've coached them, so you've walked alongside them as they are practicing it. And then you've gotten to a point where, like, you're the mentor. You now get to say, all right, Vicki, what body regulation do you think we should do today? What do the people need? How would you like to tweak this? What do you want to say? Should we do one that's more mental, more physical? Do you have other ideas? And you're kind of there as like this guiding, open-ended question sort of person. Now, the thing about this framework is that, like, it does go back around in itself, and it's not linear. It is definitely a circle. And if I could, there would be arrows from mentor back to coach, maybe from model to mentor, from coach back to model. So it depends on the situation, what you're asking folks to do, and what kind of skills they have. And that is going to determine kind of the role of the adult. In each of these circles, the adult or the person that is like kind of working with the youth is going to have a different kind of role or different kind of approach. And it's probably a lot like parenting. I wouldn't know much about that because I'm not a parent, but I would imagine there are a lot of similarities. So how do we know how to best empower youth? This is something that grounds me, that I always come back to, and this is Kurt Hahn, someone who is highly involved in expeditionary school learning and really believed that experience was the way to teach someone. He said there are 3 ways of trying to win the young. There's persuasion, there's compulsion, and there is attraction. You can preach at them, and that is a hook without a worm. You can say, you must volunteer, and that is of the devil. You can tell them you are needed, and that appeal hardly ever fails. And this works for adults as well, I'm sure you know. But if a teen is asked to do something or told to do something or persuaded to do something, it'll typically fall into, they might not be interested. But if you can say to someone, a young person, hey, I see you, this is what you bring to the table and you are needed. Like, we need this skill because of this particular reason. You're going to be able to run through that framework a lot easier. So let's take a look at these a little bit more closely. The adult role when you're modeling is more like a teacher or instructor. So it's sort of your traditional framework of working with youth. And the model says, I'll show you, let me show you how this goes. Best to provide a structure. You're going to be teaching skills when you're modeling, like literally teaching step-by-step skills. You're modeling values. So if you want there to be a safe, inclusive, warm space, you have to model that and put that into the structure. It can't just be something that you tell folks to do. And show them what programming or an activity can actually look like. This picture on the left here is Tyler in the very front. He's our peer education coordinator. Vicky is the second person back there. And then we've got Maya and Maria, who are other peer educators. And then I'm in the back in the green, and this is the front of the rec room building in Homer. So the adult role is the teacher or instructor in this phase saying, I'll show you. This is sometimes the easiest role to be in because it means that all the authority is on the person who's modeling, and we just get to say what happens, right? Then there's moving into coaching. So if you want teens to start having a little bit more say in what's happening, you have to shift your role as the person who's modeling into coach or support. And this is like, let's practice together. So I've shown you how to do this particular thing. You've seen me do it really well. I've asked you what your opinion is about it. And now I'm going to ask you to do it. So I'm going to support you, encourage you. I'm going to let you fail a little bit, not when the consequences are too big. I'm going to be there to pick you back up, but I'm also going to give you space. This can be one of the most challenging phases of all 3 of these, because it essentially means that you are giving enough space for someone to try something, and it's not going to be the way that you would do it, and it's not going to be perfect because nothing ever is. But it is like the juiciest, meatiest part for learning and gaining skills and feeling confident. And it also means that the adult in this role has to be comfortable enough standing back and stepping in when appropriate. So it means that you've set up appropriate experiences where someone can fail, but that the consequences are not so high that you're going to break trust with that person, right? Then there's mentoring. This is the most fun part, I think. It means that you've modeled, you've coached, and now you're at a place where you can be like the fun aunt, maybe in a way, where you are there for backup and you're mostly teaching the teens, seeking the teens' perspective. So this means you're asking open-ended questions, you're debriefing things with them, and you are helping them to continue to decide how they want to evolve and what they might want to do next. The interesting thing about these three, I'm just going to go back to this slide, is that I think what happens, what I see happens the most and is the most tempting, is that once you've gotten to the mentorship phase of this, people think that youth empowerment maybe means standing back and letting youth kind of run the show. And then what happens is a new situation comes up or a new challenge comes up and adults forget to come back in and model. So for example, on our peer education team, Vicky and her teammates, Maya and Maria, all know how to run an after-school meeting for themselves. They all know how to prepare for their big project of teaching in the schools. They all know the organizational model that we've given them for where to find all of their materials. But there are some things that come up that they might not know yet how to approach, even if I am in the mentor phase of some of the things that they're doing, they still need me to model some other things. And I feel like that particularly comes up a lot when you're dealing with team dynamics or group dynamics. Teens might know how to do the thing, how to do the project, how to move forward on designing something, creating something, bringing an idea to life. But something that they might need help with is, well, what happens when Vicky and Maya have a really big disagreement, or there's some passive aggressive behavior that is like holding up their ability to work together on a project? As an adult, you might need to come back in and model how they deal with that together, right? So you might be in a mentor phase for some things, but you might need to step back in as a model and say, oh, they don't actually have the tools for this yet, and they haven't seen it because it hasn't come up yet. I need to step back in and show them how to do that. So again, it's like this kind of constant back and forth and continual assessing of what's happening and what folks need in order to continue to move them to the mentorship phase of things. Okay, Vicky, I had some questions for you. Vicky is one very wise young lady who's been in the peer education program for almost a year now. Is that right, Vicky? Yeah. And so I asked her if she would share her perspective on what is some good advice that you might have for adults in each of these phases and how to behave. Vicky, if you wouldn't mind sharing, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so starting off with model, I think something that's really vital for this role is patience. This is going to be reoccurring for the next two, but patience is super important for this first one. And also being able to slow your pace down a bit more than usual is good to help people keep up and learn as you go. So you have to like stop and go and just, it's good to slow down so you can just go at a nice slow pace. Then we want to go to coach. Again, patience is important. Being patient for this one too is, the first two are important for patience, especially because you have someone practicing with you at this point. It is also important to give positive reinforcement and support, especially if someone messes up or forgets a certain part that they're doing. Meeting that mistake with positive reinforcement and constructive positive criticism is good to help the person feel supported and to keep on moving. And last, for this one, trust is the most important part. You're there for support in this case, and you're not trying to take the lead. Trusting whoever is leading is vital, and allowing that person to take the lead without jumping in is important, because you're allowing them to lead and for them to grow without you having to lead them.
Yeah, I I think what Vicky just said there is one of the toughest parts. Can you say that again, Vicky, that last piece of advice?
Yeah, trusting whoever is leading is really vital, and allowing that person to lead without jumping in is important.
Whoa, 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 whoa. So what does that mean? That means at that moment where you have empowered folks enough that they are able to run with things and they're about to do something that you would never do, or a decision that you can't believe, or like, why would they even decide that? That you have to let it happen. You know, if the consequences aren't too great, if it's not harming anyone, if it's not hurting anyone, if it's not violent or judgmental or mean, you've got to let that decision happen, because if you don't, it's like saying, well, I sort of trust you, but not really. And I need to jump in and show you how to do things. And that, I think, is one of the toughest spots. I see you nodding your head, V. Okay, I realize we are getting super close to time, and I want to give some moments for breakout rooms. I want to show one more framework that might be useful for folks. And that's Roger Hart's ladder of young people's participation. So this is, it's called a ladder, but it really looks like more of a staircase in this one. And this is starting on the bottom rung and moving up to the top is sort of like the direction that you would want to go when you're thinking about how youth are participating in programming. So the bottom three young rungs are, according to Roger Hart, not the best. So young people are manipulated, young people are used as decoration, young people are tokenized. That's like asking a young person, hey, what do you think? And then not really giving them context for what it is they're making a decision about, or what it is that they're giving their opinion about. And I would imagine that all of us at some point have either been privy to this or have done this. And it can be really easy to stay in that bottom rung. What you want to do ideally is start moving up. So rung 4, young people are assigned and informed. That means that the adult has come up with the project or the thing that's happening, and Vicky is given a role. Honestly, this presentation, Vicky's participation would be probably rung 4, rung 5. And that's because Vicky has never done a presentation in an after-school conference before. So it would be inappropriate for me to say, hey, V, why don't you come up with a presentation for a bunch of after-school educators, right? It would be more appropriate for me to say to her, can you help inform some of this and give some advice on this? Rung 6, adult initiated shared decisions with young people. So the adult is kind of still running the show, making a lot of the decisions, but at certain points along the way is asking youth, hey, what do you think? What should we do here? Rung 7, young people are leading and initiating action. So that means that there's space for young folks to actually have an idea, take initiative, and that it is highly supported by adults. And then rung 8, young people and adults are sharing decision making. And some people say that on this rung, it's really adults that are there to support. So the young people are making all of the decisions, identifying needs, identifying the project that needs to happen, identifying what needs to come to life, whatever that is, and that adults are there to support and back up. There are some theoretical arguments about rung 7 and rung 8 being interchanged, but for the purposes of this slide right now and in this presentation, I'm curious if you took a look at this ladder or this staircase and were able to identify, think of one program or aspect of your program that's happening right now with young people that you might want to improve as far as teen empowerment, and ask yourself, where is that on this staircase right now? Where is that truly through the lens of youth participation on the staircase right now? And if we could just get folks to share in the chat what rung of the staircase you think you might be at with a particular program that you might want to take to the next level. Where are you starting? Nice. Misha says rung 4 to 5. 4 and like to go up, right on. Rung 5. Rung 6, right on. 6, nice, awesome, that's cool. Yeah, adult initiated shared decisions. Okay, 6 in public art, very cool. Okay, so I'm layering on a couple things here. And this is how my brain works. I don't know if this is how everybody's brains work, but what I see is if I've identified that I want to move up to the next step with a particular program or a particular aspect of the program, what I do is I use this framework to think about how I want to move up. So do I need to model? Do I need to coach? Do I need to mentor? What are the aspects here and the skills here that I'm using in order to help teens get to the next level of that ladder? I want to put people into breakout rooms so that you can perhaps identify, like, here's a couple things that I might like to try this month in order to try and move up a step of this ladder. So I'm going to share, I have a bunch of what doesn't work, which you probably know already, but I want to share some of the what works, because these are things that you can actually do. Structure, give them something to start with. Do you have enough structure in your programming? Is that what's holding you back from getting up to the next rung? Are you modeling well enough? This means teaching skills. Are you asking them to take on responsibility that has low consequences at first? What is that? Are you recognizing individual strengths? Because teens aren't going to want to take more responsibility unless they know that you see them and you see that they can actually bring strengths to the project or whatever it is you're working on. Are you amplifying those strengths? Great example, V, I'm going to pick on you. V is the peer education writer. We never had that job ever existing before until Vicky came along. And we were like, Vicky wants more responsibility. What should we give to her? She's ready. And she said, I love writing. And so we said, great. And we created a position for her. So how are you amplifying the strengths of your youth? And are you building skills? So not only is V the peer education writer, but she actually is working with Tyler, who helps to then build her skills in writing at the same time. Although V, I would bet you're teaching him a couple of things as well.
Oh yeah.
I'd
like to share real quick. This job was kind of not sprung on me, but like presented in surprise, because what happened was I applied to be the lead peer educator, and then they're just like, hey, do you want to be the peer education writer instead? I was like, sure.
Yeah, my impression of that was that was a role you were more excited about, but am I just remembering it that way? Yeah, okay. Right on. So we did a right on job by you then, by giving you a role that was like more appropriate for you. Awesome. I remember being like, hey V, we know you applied for lead peer educator, but what do you think about this peer education writer position? And she was like, oh. You know, like, so there's a really cool example of amplifying strengths. Are you teaching team dynamics? This is one that gets, we could do a whole 75,000 hour workshop on how to teach team dynamics. You can't ask people to work together and do hard things unless you teach them how to treat each other well and how to give each other feedback. So maybe that's something that you need to do in your programming. Do you have a common goal? What are they working towards? Are there natural consequences embedded? Are you allowing them to fail of their own accord? Are you allowing yourself to step back enough to let folks feel natural consequences so that they can come back and say, that didn't really work. Maybe we should try it again this time. And that is way more powerful than you jumping in and saying, I don't think this is going to work. Hold on, wait. Are you debriefing things? Are you taking the time to reflect and say, all right, we did that. How did it go? What do you think? What could we improve on? And then implementing those reflections. And then are you using roles and responsibilities? So do people know what their role is, what they're good at, what they're bringing to the team, and what their responsibilities are? So there are a lot of different things here, but what I'm interested in having folks do is, what would you like to try? What are your next steps? Using the model coach mentor framework, identify 1 to 2 approaches you would like to try in your programming this month. And you can use model coach mentor. You can use the ladder if you want to. You can use an idea of your own, but essentially like identifying small steps that you can take or ways that you can improve the ability to bring more teen empowerment to your programming. Okay, I think Lucas has got us started ready with some breakout rooms. And let's do 8 minutes, Lucas, because we've got, I think 10 minutes left, and then we'll just come back and say goodbye for a couple minutes. But you're going to be put randomly into dyads of 2 people. And that was intentional because if you're in a breakout room of 3 or 4 people, you quite often won't get to identifying stuff. So meet in your breakout room and just share what aspect of your programming would you like to improve, and what would you like to try? What would you like to try?
Please, we take around 1 minute to bring everybody back.
Thank you, Lucas. That sounds great. Right on. I see Amisha. Hey, Sam. Hey, Julie. So nice to see people's faces. Right on. Right on, right on. Cool. Got folks coming back in from a very quick breakout room session. Okay. We've got, let's see, 33 people are back. It looks like there's still a couple folks, maybe folks have left and they're not interested in the Q&A. So I just wanted to wrap up the last minute, and then if folks wanted to keep chatting or ask Vicky or I questions, that space is open from 1 to 2. But the workshop is called #TeensAreTheFuture. It's a hashtag that was made by our peer educators. And I wanted to say that Kenneth made a really great comment that I just noticed when I asked, where are you on the rung? And he said it depends on the day, on the adult staff, on the program. And yeah, he's absolutely right. It can often depend on who the adult is, as far as like how much participation youth have. And the reason that I wanted to present some of these ideas is because I truly, truly in my soul and through experience believe that if you have a good structure for understanding how to achieve youth empowerment, you can impart that onto staff and you can build it into your programming. So then it doesn't matter who the person is. It doesn't matter if it's like this amazing youth worker who's got like the best youth empowerment skills that they just happen to have brought to the table. It's your job, if you're a program manager or someone who is a supervisor, to give them the structure for how to do that. So there is a way for it to be embedded in the culture of your agency so that you're moving up those rungs. And I will also say that, like, for some people in programming, rung 5 or rung 6 might be okay. I don't think that the hierarchy of getting to the top isn't like necessarily the best. It's what's best for your programming, what's best for the kids you're working with, and what's really needed. And you've got to assess all of those things. But I truly, truly believe that using systems and structures is like the magic tool for helping to make all this stuff happen. So thanks for choosing Vicky and I's presentation. I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Stick around if you like, take a break if you like, and hopefully see y'all in person next year. Right on. Thanks, Alicia.
The link to the evaluation is in the chat box. If you can fill those out.
V, you're amazing and don't ever change. Guess I'm loving the chat.
Thank you.
Where can we find your blog?
I can put the link in chat.
Thank you.
V, props to you. I mean, I've been doing after school for a while too. And even for like me, I get so intimidated to work, especially like on Zoom and talk to adults, especially when like everybody's turning their webcam off. So props to you. Thank you for your confidence and thank you for sharing. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, V. I'm excited to read this.
So Liz, you guys have anything planned for this weekend?
As far as the rec room goes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we are a weekendless operation.
Okay. Is it just Monday through Friday? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But what's today? Today's Friday. We don't usually have stuff on Fridays, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays is when our virtual programming happens. Trying to expand to maybe Mondays, maybe Fridays as well.
There's actually two. So with I know that you have Sierra is your staff, correct, over at
Yeah.
Rec Room, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys also like what does that look like to implement like some of these philosophies that you talked about in your training when you started to bring her on? Was that like process of like how did you implement that with her, or did she kind of have a pretty good grasp of this when you started?
What's unique about Sierra is that she was a peer educator. So she was Vicky like 5 years ago. And so she's now 23 and working as the rec room coordinator. And so understands a lot of that stuff, but is now looking at it from an adult perspective. But yeah, I feel like, you know, it's so interesting. I feel like with staff too, that's a whole like another thing is with both Tyler and Sierra have gone through this model and have actually shared it with both of them, like where I'll be really explicit and say, okay, Tyler, I'm modeling this for you right now, or like, this is new, you've never done it, I'm going to model it for you right now. I want you to see how I do it, not because it's the end all be all, but I just want to give you a good framework. And then we'll identify things that he wants to start doing on his own, like when he first started teaching in classrooms or first started being the one to communicate with schools instead of me, like moving him through that wheel as well. And then Sierra as well, who's been a participant but never run an after school hangout or a program. So like putting her in the modeling where I'm like, okay, Sierra, I'm just going to model how I would do it. Doesn't mean how you would do it, but here I want to give you a good framework and a good structure, and then we'll move into these. So I actually have like explicit conversations with staff about these. And then once we get to the point where we're mentoring, it's really cool because I can say, all right, now you can tell me, do you need me to model? Do you need me to coach? Do you need me to mentor? Like where are you feeling at on this spectrum? And I can just assume that role.
Yeah, I think that's huge, right? Like it's so easy for us to like walk into it and be like, all right, this is how I'm going to handle it. This is how I want it to be. But that like, I don't know about this, but like, it's very easy to extend that grace, if that's the word to use, like towards your youth, especially when like, okay, I'm going to make sure I do all these specific things. But then like when you get a staff member, and like unless you have that relationship before, you almost like, okay, this is what I'm expecting of you for them to do, you know, but you also have to be able to come from this place of like how to empower your staff. I'm just
Dude,
like,
that's a whole nother presentation.
it is. It's just like, how do you empower your staff to then make the decision of like, okay, no. So you can make this decision without me. Like it is okay. And then there's these elements of like, okay, can you make this decision? Like I'd rather you make a decision than just like not do anything, but like use the best knowledge. And I just want to know what the process that you're going through is. And then I can choose if I need to model something for you, or if it's just like a quick coaching session of what's happening. So just like how to do all three, you know?
Yeah, that's right on, Peely. That's so cool. I'm bummed. Too bad we didn't mention that, but I feel like that it's funny. What you said, like having it be easier to find the grace to apply that kind of step back with youth, but like not as much with adults. I experienced that as well. Like I find it harder to not jump back in when it comes to staff. And when it comes to youth, like Vicky, I'm like, I feel totally cool if you mess up right now, like whatever, no big deal. I don't think that you're going to, but like, I don't know what it is. I'm like, yep, cool. And then we'll just talk about it later. It'll be no big deal and we'll learn from it, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely like, I don't know. And for me, I always told myself, I'm like, I care so much about what's happening. That's why it's really hard for me to let go right now. But also at the same time, I'm like, you got to make sure you're doing it for the youth. Like that's ultimately the goal. And you're not doing them any favors if you're the one like holding the reins all the time. Because if you're not there, like what we've seen like with turnover, like you want to make sure that the program goes without you, or that like kids are still going to be good even if it's not about you. And so just even that element of like, okay, who am I? Like, I think we've seen these like leadership models where like your goal as a leader is to replace yourself so that then you can have like multi-dimensional leadership within a program, right? So then there's even those elements of like, okay, what am I going to do here? Or like, oh my gosh, like the thought of like replacing yourself is probably the scariest thing, but it's also just like huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think every aspect of what you just said there could be like a whole hour-long chat. I find that like I get really geeked out about like systems and structures and like long-term strategic planning. And like I really think that embedding this kind of stuff and giving people the structure rather than the like minute-to-minute task, here's what to do, but giving them the structure to understand how to apply and how to pivot in each situation creates staff longevity, creates quality of programming, creates staff buy-in, creates like good culture. I mean, it's got so many impacts, and it's harder. It takes a lot more work. It takes a lot more thought. It takes a lot more conversation.
Yeah, I mean, even thinking like that, like I don't know, I've seen so many of them, like the seat on the bus that you're in, or even like that we're all going to the same place, and just like making sure people are in their strategic places too. Or even like when you were talking, I was hearing a lot of like the strength based, what do we want to make sure that we can build on. From when you were talking about Vicky, it was like, okay, what are her strengths? And we're going to make sure we build on that. Right. But then also making sure that we like get to know our staff well enough to where it's like, okay, what are your strengths and what can I do to build off of that and get you going in a place while you're in program so that you can feel comfortable, you can feel empowered, and that me as supervisor or whatever your role is, I'm going to try to do whatever I can to fill in all those other gaps that I'm seeing. But first, we have to make sure that you feel comfortable and that you're ready to go, you know? So there's just like these huge, I get geeked out too by models and like leadership models, and like I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Who's that? Cecilyn? I see you nodding over there and smiling.
Yeah, actually, I have a question, and I'm sure it's a question that everybody has, but how do you have any resources or like recommendations on how to try to promote more youth empowerment, specifically during the times of COVID, where there is just so much control everywhere? I mean, how am I supposed to navigate this?
I know, right? I hear you. Do you have kids coming to programming at all? Like,
we've been really incredibly lucky, and we haven't had any COVID cases here until about 2 weeks ago. So we've been shut down for about 2 weeks.
Yeah. I can just tell you what happened in the rec room and what we did that seemed to work. We were lucky to already have a team of teens who work for us. And so like Vicky and Maya and Maria, the three who were on the team at the time of the March shutdown here in Homer, we were like, okay, we can't go into the schools. We can't run after school programming. We were still meeting with them. We were like, what do teens need right now? Like, what you tell us what teens need right now. And then Vicky and Maria and Maya were able to identify that teens needed connection, laughter, and information. And so we started doing these virtual hangouts. And I know that that's not possible for everybody, but like, if we're in this virtual world, like pulling on the strength of digital natives and the fact that they understand that world so much better than we do as a way to like let them guide, like, what do we do in this time right now? Like, we can still meet over Zoom, and that's what we're doing. Do I hate staring at a screen? Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but like, it's the way kids are getting engaged, and it like still provides laughter and connection and a space to like be together. So I don't know if there's some way to get involved like virtually, or have a session where you can ask them, what do you think right now? What do you think youth need? But something that Tyler and I also talked about, he was kind of like my main coworker at the time when this all hit. something that we talked about was the importance of adults carrying youth a little bit through new situations. Like when shit hits the fan and it's really hard, there's a fine line between saying to the youth, what do you think we should do? And just like modeling a couple things, you know, calling them into something that you've set up or have already structured or been like, this is the thing that we're doing. Come on in. So it's a balance, you know. They're looking to us for like, what do we do right now? I know it's not really like a concrete answer. As far as resources, how to empower teens during COVID, I don't know that I have any.
I don't know either. Like we were getting ready to start a cooking class for middle schoolers, and you know, we've got all these plans, but it's just.
Can you, Cecilyn, something that Project Grad here in Homer did, because we've been remote for a while with a small reprieve at the beginning of the school year, they were making kits for folks and then either dropping them off at folks' houses or having families pick them up if they could. So like a little arts and crafts kit or a little STEM kit, and then the kid would take it home and then they could join on Zoom to like do the thing. You're muted, Cecilyn. Or maybe on purpose.
It was intentional. Somebody had knocked on the door. Sorry about that.
Yeah, V says ask the teens themselves.
So were you asking me something? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying people have made take-home kits. Like if there's a way to get, you know, like bag up supplies or something for folks and either have them pick them up or drop them off. Project Grad was doing.
So we use the have you heard of Goose Chase?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, it's like a scavenger hunt on steroids. It's this app, and well, we have a license to use it, and I've done a few. And the person who's running the game enters in all these clues or, you know, whatever, just who are, you know, everybody take a picture of the oldest coin you could find, and the oldest one will get bonus points, stuff like that. Take a video of you doing 5 push-ups. It's a scavenger hunt on steroids. Is so much fun.
That's so cool. I like that.
Yeah, so that's something we were considering doing during while we're shut down, and doing that along with brown bag supplies. But I don't think youth engagement is the big issue. I think we could still get a little bit of that. It's the whole youth empowerment part that I think we're kind of lacking in during COVID.
Mm-hmm. And it might be, you know, I feel like sometimes times like this put like bigger picture goals on pause, you know. There might be a reason for that. But I bet like if you asked, like if you have teens engaged, and one really simple way is to ask them, what do y'all want to do at our next gathering, you know, and give them choice. I think that's like I feel like what I've seen and where it falls apart for me is if you just say, what do you guys want to do? And it's like, well, nobody knows, or people are tired, or they don't have any opinions. But if you give choice, if you can say, all right, for the next time we meet, we could do the Goose Chase scavenger hunt, we could play Among Us, or we could do a baking thing. What do y'all want to do? Like giving them, you know, and once they have those parameters, they're like, oh, I get to say, like, even if they aren't things that they would ever think of or say themselves, all of a sudden it's like, Cecilyn wants to know what I think. She wants to, like, I get to say what we're doing in the next thing. And then you build on that, right? So it's like, all right. And then every time you meet, you're like, okay, well, what do y'all want to do next? And then you get into that rhythm, and then you're like, okay, we've been playing Goose Chase, you know, what's going well about that? What's not going well about that? Are there other things that we might want to do? Like you're just like constantly layering and building these, I don't know, like building structures in.
Yeah, it's the coolest thing. Like all the participants can see everybody else's submissions in this feed, and there's another page where you could see where you currently rank. It's really fun. You should look into it.
Cool. Yeah. Vicky, have you heard of Goose Chase? No. I'm gonna look into it. Virtual scavenger hunt. Right on. They've been playing Among Us here, which is a little weird of a game, but
Yeah.
it's really dig it.
Hey, can you hear me?
Darren, yes.
Oh, hi. So thanks so much for your presentation. It was awesome. I lost it for a while there. Unfortunately, when I was one-on-one with a gentleman named Matthew, my phone went out on me, and hopefully I can apologize to him someday. But on youth empowerment, something that I'm working hard on right now is a program through 4-H called Youth in Governance. And it's gone on for a number of years where youth come in and come to Juneau and learn about state government. And I'm really interested in social justice issues, and so I would like to, now that I've kind of been handed this program, what my vision is to try and have youth identify just things are going on in their community that maybe they could make an improvement on. Just, is there any change in your community that you'd like to work on? And in the process, engage in their local government structures, whether it's be a city assembly or even the native government structures, and just kind of learn, and as they try and address a self-identified interest as far as, something's not working right. What can I do to help make it better? And so that's the youth empowerment piece that I'm really excited about helping form. And so I'm trying to kind of think of how that's structured, and because it is going to be quite a bit different than how it's been in the past, at least the way I'm looking at it. And one of the ways that maybe I could frame this into a question, if we do have a moment, I know we just ran out of our time frame, but you were mentioning, and Vicky has a position as writer or what have you for the group. And so I guess I would just be interested in how you define positions for youth and roles for youth, and whether they're self-identifying their roles or that kind of thing. So that's something I'm looking at. And I know we're out of time, so we could just, leave it at that. But if you do have a moment, I'd be interested in that.
Roles are so important, and I think there's probably a million ways to go about it. I've always just started off with roles as part of modeling, and here's the role: someone's the leader, someone's the scribe, someone is the relationship master. I've done before because I'm really focused on relationships and team dynamics, and then giving them a really set understanding of what that role is, modeling how to do it, letting them run with it for a week or two so that they can practice it. And then within the meetings or when you're meeting with them, you have to keep it alive. I think that's where roles fall apart, right? So if you've got a facilitator or scribe, you say to the scribe, oh, did you write that down? Or, hey, can you go back to that last conversation we just had and tell me about what so-and-so just said? And maybe you don't really need to know what so-and-so just said, but you're incepting how to keep that role alive. And then once they have the rhythm of that, you're asking them, what do we think about the scribe role? Is it useful? What's working about that? What's not working about that? So then you are starting to build their understanding of those roles and their buy-in, because they get to say whether or not they think it's a good thing or how it should evolve or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's the same, starting with the structure, give them something really solid, coach them, mentor them, let them, but you gotta, show them some, and keeping it alive is the hardest one, Darren. It's one thing to say, you're the leader, you're the scribe, you're the whatever, and then totally forgetting. And then people are like, who was the what? How about that?
Yeah. That makes sense. Cool.
Right
Appreciate
on.
it. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, we should probably head on. I think
Thank you.
they're closing things. Yep. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Alicia, for staying a couple minutes over.
Hey, Darren.
so much.
Nice to meet you, V and Liz.
Thank you.
Lisa. Take care.
Thank you.
Skaters. Hey V, don't forget to put this on your timesheet, sister friend.
How long do I put on?
You started with me at 11 o'clock, so that's 2.5 hours. Yep, 2.5 hours.
Yep.
Thank you very much, V. That was great. It was really good to hear your voice. Okay. Have a good weekend, my friend.
You too. Bye.